Part 5. The medical ward of Refuge Point had become something of a spectacle. Dae-hyun lay in a recovery bed, connected to various machines that monitored his slowly healing body. Radiation poisoning was not something that healed quickly, even with advanced galactic medicine. The doctors had been honest. He would survive, but full recovery would take months. There would be permanent damage, increased cancer risk, chronic pain. He had smiled and thanked them for their honesty. Then he asked when he could return to work. The doctors thought he was joking. He wasn't. Hyun-woo occupied the bed next to his own injuries less severe but still significant. The pilot spent most of his time annoying the medical staff with requests for better food and complaining about the entertainment options. Bo-ra had been released after 2 weeks. Her cybernetic arm had actually shielded her from the worst of the radiation, and her natural stubbornness handled the rest. She visited daily, bringing news from the outside world, and there was a lot of news. "You're famous," she announced on her third visit, dropping a data tablet onto Dae-hyun's bed. "Galactic famous. Like every species in known space is talking about you famous." Dae-hyun picked up the tablet. The main galactic news feed displayed the headline, "Prey species sacrifices self for predator species. What it means for galactic society." "That's a terrible headline," he muttered. "There are worse ones," Hyun-woo said cheerfully. "My favorite is humans too stupid to die or too brave to care." The story had spread across the galaxy with remarkable speed. 3 humans had stayed behind on a dying ship to save civilians of multiple species, including the feared Threvik. They had survived lethal radiation exposure through what could only be described as pure stubbornness. And they had done it without expectation of reward or recognition. It was the kind of story that made people uncomfortable because it challenged fundamental assumptions. The ward door opened. Ji-won entered, followed by several individuals Dae-hyun didn't recognize. One was clearly insectoid with multiple legs and compound eyes. Another was gaseous, contained in a sophisticated environmental suit. A third was vaguely humanoid but covered in crystalline growths. "Dae-hyun," Ji-won said formally. "This is Ambassador Thelkor from the Galactic Council. He would like to speak with you." The insectoid stepped forward. Its translator rendered its clicking sounds into standard speech. "I represent the interests of the Galactic Council. We are here to investigate the incident involving the colony ship and your subsequent actions." "Am I in trouble?" Dae-hyun asked. "Trouble? No." The ambassador's compound eyes reflected light strangely. "Confusion? Very much, yes. The Council wishes to understand how your species is capable of what you demonstrated." Over the next hour, the ambassador asked questions. Detailed questions about human physiology, psychology, cultural practices, evolutionary history. Dae-hyun answered honestly, though he suspected his answers only created more confusion. "Your species evolved on what galactic classification considers a death world," Thelkor said, reviewing data on a floating screen. "Class 9 hazard rating. Extreme weather. Predators at every ecological level. Toxic plant life. Diseases. Yet not only did you survive, you thrived. You spread across your entire planet. How?" "We're stubborn," Dae-hyun said. "And we're good at working together." Insufficient explanation. "It's the truth, though," Hyun-woo interjected from his bed. "Humans don't quit. It's basically our whole thing." The ambassador made a sound that might have been frustration. "Every species has survival instincts. But most species recognize when a situation is hopeless and retreat. Self-preservation is fundamental to life. Yet humans consistently ignore self-preservation in favor of helping others, even other species. This is not logical. Logic is overrated," Bo-ra said from her chair in the corner. "We do what feels right." Another visitor arrived the next day. Dr. Nara was a medical researcher from the Trevak Collective. Her multiple limbs carried various scanning devices, and her interest in human biology bordered on obsessive. "Fascinating," she kept saying as she reviewed Dae-hyun's medical data. "Your body is actively repairing radiation damage at a rate that should be impossible. Your cellular structure is remarkably resilient." "Humans heal well," Dae-hyun agreed. "No, you don't understand. Your cells are not just healing. They are adapting, learning from the damage. Your immune system is incorporating the radiation damage into its memory, preparing for future exposure." Dr. Nara's excitement was visible despite her alien features. "You are not just surviving. You are evolving in real time." A young human researcher named Jin Seok had been assigned to help Dr. Nara. He was brilliant but nervous, constantly adjusting his glasses and speaking too quickly when excited. "I've been studying Earth's evolutionary history," he explained. "Humans faced repeated extinction-level events, ice ages, volcanic winters, asteroid impacts. Each time the population bottlenecked to just a few thousand individuals. But we survived, and each survival event selected for traits that helped us endure impossible situations." "Such as?" Thelkor asked. The ambassador had returned to observe the research: pain tolerance, the ability to function under extreme stress, endurance hunting capabilities, social bonding that overrides self-preservation, psychological resilience to trauma, problem-solving under pressure. Jin Seok pulled up charts and graphs. "Individually, humans are weak. Collectively, we're nearly unstoppable because we refuse to give up on each other." Dr. Nara added her findings. Human bodies produce chemicals during crisis situations that suppress pain and fear, while enhancing strength and focus. Adrenaline, endorphins, dopamine. Other species have similar systems. But humans have an unusual ability to consciously trigger these responses. You can choose to ignore your body's warnings when necessary. "That sounds like a design flaw," Thelkor observed. "It's a survival mechanism," Jin Seok corrected. "On a death world, the ability to push through pain and fear is the difference between living and dying." The research findings were published across the galactic scientific community. They caused immediate debate. Some species viewed humans as potential allies, seeing value in their unique capabilities. Others viewed humans as dangerous anomalies, too unpredictable to integrate into civilized society. The Threvik response was different. Varmoth had remained on refuge point throughout Daehyun's recovery. The warrior visited daily, often sitting in silence beside the medical bed. Yuri, now officially Varmoth's ward, accompanied him always. On the 30th day of recovery, Varmoth brought news. "The Threvik High Command has reviewed your actions," the warrior said formally. "They have made a decision. Should I be worried?" Daehyun asked. "You should be honored." Varmoth stood at full height, his voice carrying ceremonial weight. "The Threvik nation formally requests alliance with Earth. We offer military protection to human colonies in exchange for human medical personnel and engineers. We also formally adopt you, Daehyun, as honorary Threvik. You will carry the warrior name Daemoth, Painwalker, one who walks through pain." The ward had gone silent. Every patient, every staff member was watching. "I'm just a medic," Daehyun said quietly. "You are proof that strength is not only claws and teeth." Varmoth placed one massive hand on his chest in what Daehyun had learned was a gesture of profound respect. "You taught my kindling that accepting help is not weakness. You taught my people that prey and predator are meaningless labels. You taught me that humans are something new in this galaxy, something we did not expect. What are we? Survivors. The truest kind." Varmoth's golden eyes gleamed. "We Threvik pride ourselves on strength. But you have shown us a different strength. The strength to endure anything, to help anyone, to never surrender. That is warrior spirit in its purest form." Yuri chirped and climbed onto Daehyun's bed. The cub was nearly full-grown now, already showing the size and power of adult Threvik. But with Daehyun, Yuri was gentle, careful not to hurt the still-healing human. Over the following weeks, more species sent representatives. The Trevak Collective requested human medical advisors. The Cathani wanted human engineers for their deep space mining operations. The Pelvar asked for human negotiators, believing that a species that risked themselves for strangers would make fair mediators. Earth's government was overwhelmed with requests and offers. Humans were suddenly valuable in galactic society, not for military might or technological advancement, but for psychological resilience and genuine altruism. Jiwon brought the summary reports to Daehyun's bedside. 20 different species want to establish formal relationships with Earth. The Galactic Council is fast-tracking our full membership application. There are over 10,000 humans who have applied to join the new medical exchange program. Your actions have changed everything. "I just saved some people," Daehyun protested. "You showed the galaxy what humans are capable of." Jiwon smiled. "That's more important than you realize. But not everything was positive. There were species that viewed human capabilities with suspicion. Meetings were held, debates raged. Concerns were raised about a species that could ignore their own biological limitations. Ambassador Thelkor addressed these concerns in a formal statement to the Galactic Council. Humans are unusual. This is fact. They are capable of actions that defy standard biological imperatives. Don't plan on dying, Daehyun replied. Just plan on being stubborn. Part 4, the shuttle departed with every survivor crammed inside. Daehyun watched from the colony ship's damaged observation window as it maneuvered through the drone swarm. Hyun-woo would get them to safety. He always did. Now came the hard part. Engineering section, Bora said, studying the ship's schematic on a half-broken console. Reactors destabilizing. The drones did more damage than we thought. We have maybe 8 minutes before it goes critical. Can we stabilize it? Daehyun asked. Define we. If you mean 3 humans with no engineering equipment and a swarm of killer robots trying to murder us, then probably not. Bora smiled grimly. But we can try. Hyun-woo had stayed behind despite Daehyun's protests. You need a pilot to restart systems, he had argued. Plus, someone needs to watch your back while you two play with the reactor. They moved through the dying ship. Emergency systems were failing. Gravity fluctuated, making each step uncertain. The temperature was dropping as life support struggled. And somewhere in the ship, drones were cutting through the hull. The engineering section was a nightmare. Plasma conduits had ruptured. Coolant systems leaked. The reactor itself pulsed with unstable energy, held together by failing magnetic containment fields. Well, Hyun-woo said, looking at the disaster. This is bad. Helpful observation, Bora muttered. She was already moving to the main control console, her cybernetic arm interfacing directly with the ship's systems. Reactor containment at 40% and falling. We need to reroute power from secondary systems to reinforce the magnetic fields. How? Daehyun asked, manually. Someone needs to crawl through the conduits and rewire the power distribution nodes. Bora pulled up a schematic. There are 5 critical nodes. They're in sections exposed to radiation. Lethal levels for most species. How lethal? Dead in 30 seconds kind of lethal. Daehyun looked at the schematic. The nodes were spread throughout the engineering section, each one requiring physical access to rewire. Show me what needs to be done, Bora demonstrated on the nearest node. Disconnect the power feed to non-essential systems. Reroute to reactor containment. It's simple work, but you're doing it in a radiation field that's cooking you alive. Then we work fast. Daehyun started removing panels to access the first node. Hyun-woo said quietly. This will kill you. Maybe, but definitely slower than the reactor exploding. He looked at his friends. Got a better idea? Neither of them did. The first node was manageable. Daehyun's hands worked quickly, disconnecting and reconnecting power feeds according to Bora's instructions. The radiation made his skin tingle, then burn. Warning indicators on his suit showed exposure levels climbing into dangerous territory. Node 1 complete, he reported, crawling back out. Containment at 42%, Bora said. 4 more nodes to go. 6 minutes until reactor breach. The second node was worse. The radiation was stronger here, closer to the reactor core. Daehyun's hands began to blister. His vision swam, but he kept working, kept focusing on the simple task of connecting wire to wire. Node 2 complete. Containment at 45%. 4 minutes left. Hyun-woo was working on the ship's propulsion systems, trying to restart maneuvering thrusters. If they could move the ship away from the station before the reactor went critical, it might save lives. His hands moved across controls even as he joked. You know, this is not how I plan to spend my day off. You don't get days off, Bora replied. Exactly. So this is still an improvement. Node 3 required entering a narrow maintenance shaft. Daehyun had to squeeze through, pulling himself along with arms that were beginning to lose feeling. The radiation here was visible, a soft blue glow that meant death. His suit alarms were screaming. He ignored them. Disconnect. Reroute. Connect. Node 3 complete. Containment at 49%. 2 minutes left. Good news, Hyun-woo announced. I got maneuvering thrusters online. Bad news. Drones are inside the ship. I count 6 of them cutting through internal bulkheads. They'll be here in 90 seconds. Handle them, Bora said, not looking up from her console. Daehyun, Node 4 is critical. It's the main power junction. If you can reroute that one, we might hit stable containment. Daehyun dragged himself toward Node 4. His legs barely responded. His hands were wrapped in blistered, peeling skin. His vision was narrowing to a tunnel, but the node was right there, just a few more meters. Behind him, he heard weapons fire. Hyunwoo had engaged the drones with a plasma cutter he had improvised into a weapon.
Come on, you flying trash cans.
Is that all you've got? A drone returned fire. The blast hit near Hyunwoo and he went down. Hyunwoo! Bo-ra shouted. I'm good. The pilot pulled himself up, favoring his left side. His suit was scorched, but he was laughing. That actually kinda hurt. Respect. Daehyun reached Node 4. This one was different. More complex. More connections to manage. His hands shook as he worked. Radiation poisoning was setting in. His body was beginning to shut down, but pain was just information. And information could be ignored. Disconnect. Reroute. Connect. Node 4 complete. Containment at 53%. 60 seconds to reactor breach. We need Node 5. Node 5 was directly beneath the reactor. The schematic showed radiation levels that should have been instantly fatal. Daehyun crawled toward it anyway. Daehyun, you can't, Bo-ra said, her voice cracking. That's too much. You won't survive. Probably not, he agreed. His voice sounded strange even to himself. Distant. But if I don't, none of us survive. He dropped into the reactor chamber. The radiation was a physical presence pressing against him like a weight. His suit's alarms had stopped. Either they had given up or his suit had failed. Didn't matter, the node was there. He could see it through the blue glow. His hands didn't want to work anymore. He forced them to move. Disconnect. His fingers were numb. Reroute. He couldn't feel the wires. Connect. Was it the right connection? He couldn't tell. Node 5 complete, he whispered. Containment at 58%. 40 seconds. It's not enough. Daehyun looked at the reactor, looked at all the power flowing through conduits around him. There was one more thing he could try. It was insane. It would probably kill him, but probably was better than definitely. He grabbed 2 primary power feeds and ripped them free from their housing. The medical bay had used gel that could seal biological tissue. Maybe it could seal reactor leaks too. He pulled out his medical kit with hands that were barely functional, squeezed the entire container of surgical gel onto the largest crack in the reactor housing. The gel expanded on contact with heat, filling the gap, hardening. What are you doing? Bo-ra's voice was distant, like she was talking from another world. Improvising. More gel. More cracks sealed. The reactor's pulsing began to slow. The magnetic containment field stabilized just slightly. Containment at 60%. 20 seconds. 62%. 15 seconds. Daehyun kept working. His vision was almost gone. His body had stopped sending pain signals, which meant things were very bad. But his hands kept moving, applying gel, sealing cracks, doing the impossible because there was no other choice. 70%. 10 seconds. Behind him, weapons fire continued. Hyunwoo and Bo-ra were holding off the drones, giving him time. 80%. 5 seconds. Daehyun sealed the last crack, applied the last of his gel, and then his body finally gave out. He collapsed beside the reactor, unable to move. Containment at 85% stable. Reactor breach averted. Silence. Then Hyunwoo's voice, weak but triumphant. We did it. Holy stars, we actually did it. Bo-ra was already moving, running toward the reactor chamber. Daehyun, can you hear me? He could hear her, but responding seemed like too much effort. Stay awake, she commanded. Stay with us. Shuttle returning, Hyunwoo announced. They must have detected the reactor stabilizing. Ida, 3 minutes. He won't last 3 minutes, Bo-ra said. She had reached Daehyun, was pulling him away from the reactor. Radiation exposure is off the charts. He needs treatment now. Then we give it to him, Hyunwoo said. He had limped over, his own injuries forgotten. Together they carried Daehyun toward the docking port. The shuttle arrived. The airlock opened, and Varmoth himself stepped through, followed by medical personnel. The Threvik warrior took one look at Daehyun and made a sound like grinding stone. Impossible. He should be dead. He's human, Bo-ra said. We're too stubborn to die on schedule. They loaded Daehyun onto a medical gurney. His eyes were open, barely focusing. He saw Yuri pushing through the crowd, chirping frantically. The cub pressed against him, and that simple contact seemed important somehow. You came back, Daehyun whispered to Varmoth. You told me not to plan on you dying, the warrior replied. I decided to ensure you kept that promise. Stubborn. Daehyun managed to smile. Yes, Varmoth agreed. But I learned from the best. The shuttle accelerated away from the colony ship. Behind them, the vessel's reactor hummed with stable energy, held together by human determination and medical gel. Hyun Woo sat beside Dae-hyun's gurney, his own burns being treated. "Hey, at least we'll glow in the dark at the victory party." Bo-ra laughed, high and slightly hysterical. "Victory party? Sure. Right after we spend 3 months in medical recovery." "Worth it," Hyun Woo said. Dae-hyun closed his eye. Part 3. The alarm woke everyone on Refuge Point at once. Dae-hyun rolled out of bed instantly, a skill developed during years of emergency medicine. His communication device was already buzzing with incoming data. He read while pulling on his uniform. "Colony ship under attack. Multiple casualties. Mixed species civilian transport. Automated weapons systems from derelict military station activated. Requesting immediate assistance." He was running toward the command center before he finished reading. The center was chaos. Ji-won stood at the main console, coordinating with the distressed ship. The holographic display showed the colony vessel, a massive transport designed to carry hundreds of civilians between systems. Red indicators swarmed around it like angry insects. "Status," Dae-hyun said, arriving beside her. "War drones from an old Kelnar military installation. Someone triggered them accidentally. The colony ship can't outrun them, and their weapons are civilian grade. Minimal defensive capability." Ji-won's fingers flew across the console. "They have 237 people on board. 12 different species, including Threvik refugees." "How many Threvik?" 30, mostly elders and young." The door burst open. Varmuth entered, fully armored. Behind him came 3 other Threvik warriors. "We volunteer for rescue mission. We're organizing a team now," Ji-won said. "But we need medical personnel. The casualty reports are already coming in." "I'm going," Dae-hyun said. "Dae-hyun, those people need a medic who can work under fire." "That's literally my job description." He turned to Varmuth. "I'll need to bring Yuri. The cub won't stay behind without me, and the stress of separation could undo the healing." Varmuth nodded. "The young should see courage in action. It is how we learn." 20 minutes later, the rescue shuttle launched. Hyun Woo sat in the pilot seat, his hands steady on the controls. He was young for a pilot, barely 25, but he had flown relief missions through asteroid fields and combat zones. His cocky grin never wavered, even now. 30 minutes to intercept, he announced. "Should be a nice scenic flight, except for the killer robots." Bora sat at the tactical station, running diagnostics on the shuttle's minimal weapons. She was a veteran of the Colonial Engineering Corps, and her cybernetic left arm moved with precise mechanical grace. "Weapons are functioning. Not that they'll do much against military drones. We're not going there to fight," Dae-hyun said. He was checking medical supplies, organizing trauma kits, preparing for the worst. "We're going to extract survivors. While fighting," Bo-ra added. "Let's be honest about what this is." Varmuth and his warriors occupied the rear compartment. The Threvik had been silent since launch, which Dae-hyun had learned meant they were in combat meditation, preparing their minds and bodies for violence. Yuri sat beside Dae-hyun, watching everything with those large, intelligent eyes. The cub was nearly full-size now, though still young. The burns had healed into silvery scars across its scales. Battle marks, Varmuth had called them. Proof of survival. "You sure about bringing the kid?" Hyun Woo asked quietly. "Yuri needs to stay with me for medical monitoring," Dae-hyun said. It was partially true. The cub was still technically his patient. But the real reason was simpler. Yuri refused to be separated from him, and forcing that separation felt wrong. "Coming up on the colony ship," Hyun Woo announced. "And hello, angry robot friends." The viewport filled with chaos. The colony ship was massive, but it was designed for transport, not combat. Its hull showed multiple breaches. Atmosphere vented in frozen plumes, and swarming around it were dozens of drones, each the size of a small vehicle, bristling with weapons that had been cutting-edge 50 years ago but were still deadly. "They're targeting the ship's engines," Bo-ra observed. "Trying to cripple it completely. Can we draw them off?" Dae-hyun asked. "I can annoy them," Hyun Woo said. He pushed the throttle forward and the shuttle accelerated toward the swarm. "Hey, ugly. Over here." Several drones broke off from the main group, turning toward the shuttle. Weapons activated, tracking systems locking on. "Here they come," Bo-ra said calmly. Her fingers danced over the weapons console. Engaging. The shuttle's small defense guns fired. They were designed to destroy debris, not military hardware, but Bora made them count. 2 drones exploded. A third lost a wing and spun out of control. But more were coming. Hold on, Hyunwoo warned. The shuttle twisted in a maneuver that defied physics and common sense. Drones shot past, their weapons fire missing by meters. In the back, Yuri chirped excitedly. The cub seemed to think this was an adventure. Docking port is still intact, Bora reported. If we can reach it? Small word if, Hyunwoo muttered. But his hands were already adjusting their trajectory. They danced through weapons fire. Hyunwoo's piloting was something between art and insanity. He flew like the shuttle was an extension of his own body, anticipating threats before they materialized. Bora covered their approach with precise weapons fire, not wasting a single shot. The docking collar connected with a metallic clang. We're in, Hyunwoo announced. Probably 30 minutes before the drones figure out how to breach the shuttle. Then we work fast, Varmoth said. He and his warriors were already moving to the airlock. The colony ship's interior was worse than the external damage suggested. Bodies lay in corridors. The air smelled of smoke and fear. Emergency lighting cast everything in red shadow. Medical bay, Daehyun said, checking the ship's layout on his device. That's where survivors would gather. They moved through the ship in formation. The Threvik warriors led, their weapons ready. Bora followed, her cybernetic arm interfacing with damaged systems, opening sealed doors. Daehyun came next, medical kit ready. Hyunwoo guarded the rear, constantly checking their escape route. And Yuri stayed close to Daehyun, silent now, sensing the danger. The medical bay doors were barricaded from inside. We are rescue, Varmoth called out. Open. The doors cracked open. A medical officer from some species Daehyun didn't recognize peered out, then opened fully. Thank the stars. We have over 80 survivors in here, some critical. The medical bay was packed. Different species huddled together, wounded being tended by whoever had medical knowledge. Daehyun saw humans, Trevak, Kathani, and yes, Threvik. The 30 refugees were clustered together, elders protecting the young. One elder, Threvik, lay on a medical bed, a massive wound across his chest. He was conscious, eyes clear, but blood was spreading beneath him. This one refused treatment, the medical officer said. Cultural practice. He wants to die with honor. Daehyun approached the dying Threvik. The elder watched him with fading attention. I am Daehyun. I am a healer. I am Korval. I am dying with honor. The elder's voice was weak but certain. Your honor is meaningless if these children watch you die when you could live. Shock rippled through the Threvik group. Speaking to an elder that way was profound disrespect. Korval's eyes focused fully on Daehyun. What do you know of honor, prey species? I know that living to protect your people is more honorable than dying to satisfy pride. Daehyun opened his medical kit. I know that if you die here, those young ones lose your wisdom, your experience, your protection. Is that honorable? The medical bay had gone silent. Even Varmoth watched, saying nothing. Korval stared at the human for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Heal me, human. Let me see if your way has merit. Daehyun worked quickly. The wound was severe but survivable with proper treatment. He cleaned, sealed, and stabilized. Around him, other survivors watched in amazement as the human ordered a Threvik elder around, and the elder obeyed. Daehyun, Bora's voice came through his comm. We've got problems. The drones are cutting through the hull. We have maybe 10 minutes. How many people can the shuttle hold? Rated for 40. We can pack in maybe 60 with everyone friendly. Daehyun looked around the medical bay. Over 80 survivors, plus their own team. The math was simple and terrible. We need 2 trips, he said. We don't have time for 2 trips, Hyunwoo responded. The drones will breach before we can return. Varmoth stepped forward. Then my warriors and I will remain. We will hold the drones while you evacuate everyone. No, Daehyun said. The Threvik warrior tilted his head. It is our duty. We are warriors. You're people who deserve to live. Daehyun stood. Humans stay. We hold the line. That is insane, Varmoth said flatly. That's humanity, Hyunwoo said, grinning. Come on, boss. You know we were going to volunteer anyway. Bora nodded. Someone needs to stay. Might as well be us, Daehyun looked at his friends. Hyunwoo still smiling like this was just another adventure. Bora checking her equipment with calm efficiency. They had all volunteered without hesitation, without drama, without expectation of reward. Get everyone to the shuttle, Dae-hyun told Varmoth. We'll buy you time. This is wrong, Varmoth said. You are prey. This is warrior work. We're human, Dae-hyun corrected. We endure. That's what we do. Yuri chirped, a sound of distress. The cub understood something bad was happening. Dae-hyun knelt, bringing himself eye level with the young Threvik. You need to go with Captain Varmoth. Protect the others. Can you do that? Yuri made a low sound, almost a growl. But when Varmoth picked up the cub, it didn't fight. If you die, Varmoth said quietly, I will tell every Threvik in the galaxy what you did. Part 2. Dae-hyun woke to the sound of arguing. His body felt like it had been used as a stress test for industrial machinery. Every muscle ached. His arm where he had injected the serum throbbed with a deep, persistent pain. But he was alive, conscious, and according to the medical readout above his bed, completely stable. The arguing was happening just outside his recovery room. He recognized Jiwon's sharp tones and Varmoth's deep rumble. He could have died, Jiwon was saying, but he did not. Varmoth's response carried a note of wonder. He should have. The serum should have destroyed his nervous system, but he walked and talked and smiled. He's an idiot who took a massive risk. He is something I do not understand. Dae-hyun sat up slowly, testing his limits. The pain was manageable now, reduced to background noise. He had felt worse after particularly difficult shifts during the war. He pulled on a shirt and walked to the door. Both Jiwon and Varmoth turned as he emerged. Jiwon immediately began scanning him with a medical device. You should still be unconscious. Disappointed? Dae-hyun asked, furious, but her voice carried relief. Don't ever do that again. How's Yuri? Recovering well. The burns are already showing significant healing. Jiwon pocketed her scanner, which brings me to my next point. Captain Varmoth has been waiting here for 6 hours to speak with you. The Threvik warrior stepped forward. In the corridor's standard lighting, he looked even more imposing. I require an explanation, human. Dae-hyun. My name is Dae-hyun. Dae-hyun. Varmoth spoke the name carefully, his translator struggling with the human sounds. Explain how you survived. I'm human, Dae-hyun said simply. That is insufficient. Dae-hyun leaned against the doorframe. On Earth, our homeworld, humans evolved as persistence hunters. We're not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most armored. But we can keep going when everything else stops. We can endure pain that would break other creatures. Our bodies produce chemicals that suppress pain responses during crisis. Our minds can choose to ignore what our nerves are screaming. Varmoth's eyes narrowed. You are prey species, prey runs. Prey hides, we were prey once maybe. Then we decided to stop running. Dae-hyun pushed off from the doorframe. Can I see Yuri? The Threvik warrior studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Follow. They walked through the station corridors. Other species gave Varmoth a wide berth, which meant they also avoided Dae-hyun. He had noticed this before. Humans occupied a strange space in galactic society, too weak to be threats, too unpredictable to be dismissed. The pediatric ward was quieter than the main medical bay. Yuri was in a specialized enclosure, the environment calibrated for young Threvik physiology. The cub was awake, watching them approach with those oversized eyes. When Yuri saw Dae-hyun, it made a sound. A soft chirp, almost musical. The medical staff monitoring the cub looked surprised. Threvik young do not vocalize except in distress, Varmoth said quietly. What was that then? I do not know. Dae-hyun approached the enclosure. Yuri pressed against the transparent barrier, small claws scrabbling at the surface. Can I go in? The attending physician, a multi-limbed species called Trevak, checked its instruments. The patient is stable. Brief contact is acceptable. Dae-hyun entered the enclosure. Immediately, Yuri clambered up his leg, surprisingly strong for something so young. The cub settled on his shoulder, making that chirping sound again. Fascinating, the Trevak physician murmured. The youngling has formed an attachment. Varmoth's expression was unreadable. Threvik young imprint on the strongest protector in their environment. It is instinct. I'm not the strongest here, Dae-hyun said, gently steadying Yuri. You endured what should have killed you. You smiled through agony to comfort my kindling. Strength is not only muscle. The warrior's voice was quiet. Perhaps we have misunderstood what strength means. Over the next several hours, word of the incident spread through the station. Dae-hyun returned to his quarters to find his communication device flooded with messages. Some were from other humans, mostly concerned friends. but many were from alien species requesting human medical personnel for their ships and colonies. Ji-Wan called him to her office. "You've created a situation," she said not unkindly. "I saved a patient. You've challenged fundamental assumptions about human capabilities." She pulled up a series of reports on her screen. 6 different species have filed requests for human doctors in the last 4 hours. The Threvik Military Command wants to discuss an exchange program. The Galactic Medical Council is demanding a full investigation into human pain tolerance. I just did what needed to be done. That's what scares them. Ji-Wan turned her screen toward him. Most species specialize. Predators focus on hunting. Prey focus on evasion. Tool users focus on technology. Humans do everything adequately and refuse to quit at anything. It's unsettling. Dae-Hyun thought about his time in the colonial wars, about watching fellow soldiers keep fighting with wounds that should have been fatal, about the human tendency to joke and laugh in the worst situations, not because they were ignorant of danger, but because humor was armor. "We're survivors," he said finally. "It's literally what we're built for." A chime indicated someone at the door. Ji-Wan opened it remotely. Varmuth entered, and the office suddenly felt much smaller. "I request permission to remain on this station during Yuri's recovery," the warrior said formally. Ji-Wan raised an eyebrow. "Threvik warriors don't request. They demand. I am not demanding. I am asking." Varmuth looked at Dae-Hyun. "My kindling has bonded with your medic. To separate them now would cause distress." "Yuri needs time to heal," Dae-Hyun agreed. "I can monitor the recovery. There is more." Varmuth's claws flexed, a sign of discomfort. "I must understand humans. I have fought across 12 systems. I have faced weapons that burn flesh from bone. I have never retreated. But yesterday, I watched a prey species do what no warrior in my clan could do. I must understand how, or I understand nothing." It was the most vulnerable statement Dae-Hyun had ever heard from a Threvik. These were creatures whose entire culture was built on strength and dominance. Admitting confusion was almost heretical. "You're welcome to stay," Ji-Wan said. "We have quarters suitable for your physiology." Over the following days, a strange routine developed. Dae-Hyun made his rounds through the medical bay. Yuri accompanied him, riding on his shoulders or following at his heels. The cub was healing rapidly, scales hardening properly, energy returning. And everywhere they went, Varmuth followed at a respectful distance. The warrior watched everything. How Dae-Hyun treated patients with gentle efficiency. How he smiled at frightened children of every species. How he worked 12-hour shifts without complaint, then returned to check on critical patients during his off hours. One evening, Dae-Hyun found Varmuth in the station's observation deck. The warrior stood before the massive viewport watching the stars. "Do you sleep?" Dae-Hyun asked. "I meditate." "It is similar." Varmuth did not turn. "I have been thinking about prey and predators. And? On my homeworld, predators hunt, prey dies. This is natural law." The warrior's tail swayed slowly. "But humans do not fit this law. You are fragile, yet you do not break. You are weak, yet you do not flee. You are prey that hunts. You are predators that heal. What are you?" Dae-Hyun stood beside him, looking out at the endless dark. "We're human. Maybe that's its own category. Perhaps." Varmuth finally turned. "Yuri grows strong. The burns heal well. My kindling will have scars, but will live a full life because you refuse to accept cultural limitations. I refuse to watch a kid die when I could help. That is not how most species think. Most would respect our ways, even if it meant death." The warrior's golden eyes gleamed. "You did not respect our ways. You showed Yuri a different kind of strength." A soft chirp announced Yuri's arrival. The cub had escaped the medical bay again, something it did with increasing frequency. It climbed up Dae-Hyun immediately, settling in its preferred spot across his shoulders. Varmuth watched this with an expression that might have been the Threvik equivalent of a smile. "My kindling has chosen its teacher. I'm just a medic. You are the prey that refuse to be prey. In my culture, that makes you the most dangerous thing in the galaxy." Dae-Hyun laughed. "I'm not dangerous." "No," Varmuth agreed. "You are something worse. You are inspiring." Part 1. The medical bay of Refuge Point Station hummed with the quiet efficiency of advanced technology. Dae-Hyun stood at the central treatment table, reviewing the incoming patient files on his datapad. He had seen many strange things in his 3 years working at this interstellar medical station, but today would test him in ways he never expected. The doors slid open with a sharp hiss. What entered made every human in the room take an involuntary step backward. Captain Varmuth was massive. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, the Threvik warrior had to duck through the doorway designed for most galactic species. His reptilian scales gleamed under the medical lights, deep crimson with black patterns that marked him as a high-ranking officer. Each movement carried the weight of coiled muscle and natural weapons. 4 arms, each ending in claws that could tear through steel. A tail thick as a human torso swept behind him. Multiple rows of teeth visible even when his mouth was closed. But it was not the warrior that drew Daehyun's attention. It was the small bundle cradled carefully in Varmuth's upper arms. The cub was tiny by Threvik standards, perhaps the size of a large dog. Its scales had not yet hardened into the armored plating of adults. They were soft, almost translucent, revealing the network of veins beneath, and across its left side angry chemical burns ate away at the delicate tissue. "Human medic," Varmuth's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You will treat the youngling." Daehyun approached slowly, hands visible and non-threatening. What happened? Kelnar attack. They're acid weapons. The warrior's eyes, golden and slitted, fixed on Daehyun with predatory intensity. "The cub's name is Yuri. You will repair the damage." Jiwon, the station administrator, appeared at Daehyun's shoulder. She was a compact woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Captain will need to sedate the patient for treatment. The burns require no sedation." Varmuth's response was immediate and absolute. Daehyun frowned. "The pain will be extreme. We have medications that will—" "No medications." The Threvik carefully placed Yuri on the treatment table. The cub whimpered, a sound like grinding metal. "It is our way. Threvik endure. Even the young must learn." "That's barbaric," Jiwon said flatly. Varmuth's head swiveled toward her. "That is strength. Your species coddles weakness. We forge warriors from birth." Daehyun held up a hand before Jiwon could respond. "Let me examine the patient first. Then we'll discuss treatment options." He approached the table slowly. Yuri watched him with eyes too large for its small head, pupils dilating and contracting rapidly. Fear and pain radiated from the small creature. Daehyun had seen that look before, in the eyes of young soldiers during the colonial wars. Children forced to be brave when they should be allowed to be children. The burns were worse than he initially thought. The Kelnar acid had eaten deep into the muscle tissue. Without treatment, infection would set in within hours. The cub would die in agony within 3 days. "We need to use regenerative serum," Daehyun said, pulling up the treatment protocol on his screen. "It's the only thing that can heal damage this severe." "Then use it," Varmuth said. "The serum has side effects. Pain during application, burning sensation as it works. It will hurt worse before it gets better. Yuri will endure." Daehyun prepared the injection, loading the thick amber liquid into the medical injector. He approached the table again. "Hey there, Yuri," he said softly, activating the translation device on his collar. "I'm going to help you feel better." Yuri's response was to hiss and snap at him, tiny teeth flashing. Despite the pain, despite the weakness, the cub's instinct was to fight. "Easy," Daehyun murmured. He placed the injector against the cub's undamaged shoulder. The moment the serum touched Yuri's skin, the cub went wild. It thrashed and shrieked, a sound that hurt human ears. Small claws raked across Daehyun's arm, drawing blood. He held on, trying to complete the injection, but Yuri's struggles made it impossible. "Hold still." Jiwon moved to help restrain the cub, but Varmuth blocked her with one massive arm. "The youngling refuses," the warrior said. "It chooses strength over comfort. It's a baby." Daehyun snapped, pulling back with the incomplete injection. "It doesn't understand that this will save its life. It understands pain makes weakness. Weakness brings death." Varmuth's voice carried no malice, only certainty. "Better to die with honor than live as prey." Daehyun stared at the warrior, then at the whimpering cub on his table. Yuri's breathing had become shallow and rapid. Shock was setting in. Without treatment, he would watch this child die because of pride and cultural stubbornness. He looked down at the injector in his hand. The amber serum glowed softly in the medical bay lights. Toxic to most species, burning agony even to those it helped. But necessary, an idea formed. It was reckless. It was dangerous. Jiwon would kill him if she knew what he was thinking. He did it anyway. Daehyun rolled up his own sleeve and pressed the injector against his forearm. The full dose meant for a creature 10 times his size. "What are you doing?" Ji-won grabbed for his arm, but too late. The injector hissed. The serum flooded into Dae-hyun's bloodstream. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the fire began. It felt like molten metal replacing his blood. Every nerve ending screamed. His vision blurred at the edges. His jaw clenched so hard he thought his teeth would crack. Sweat broke out across his forehead and back. His knees wanted to buckle. Dae-hyun had experienced pain before. He had performed surgery on himself in a collapsed bunker with no anesthesia. He had set his own broken bones. He had walked 3 days on a shattered ankle to reach an evacuation point. This was worse. But he had learned long ago that pain was just information. The body screaming that something was wrong, and information could be ignored if you had a good enough reason. He looked at Yuri. The cub had stopped thrashing. Those large eyes were fixed on the human who had just poisoned himself. Dae-hyun smiled. It hurt to smile. It hurt to breathe. It hurt to exist. But he smiled anyway, teeth showing, eyes crinkling at the corners. The universal expression of reassurance, see? He said through clenched teeth, his voice surprisingly steady. Not so bad. He prepared a second injector with shaking hands. Approached the table again. Yuri watched him, head tilted in confusion that transcended species. Your turn, little warrior, Dae-hyun said softly. This time, when he placed the injector against Yuri's shoulder, the cub did not fight. It whimpered. It trembled. But it stayed still and let the medicine flow. Behind them, Ji-won was already pulling up Dae-hyun's vital signs on her datapad, ready to call for emergency intervention. The other medical staff stood frozen, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Varmoth stood completely still. His forearms hung at his sides. His tail had stopped moving. For a long moment, the Threvik warrior simply stared at the human who should be unconscious, who should be convulsing, who should be anything except standing upright and smiling. How? Varmoth finally said. Not a question. An accusation. Dae-hyun's legs finally gave out. He sat down hard on the floor back against the wall. The pain was beginning to fade to a more manageable roar. Humans endure, he said simply. It's what we do. Yuri made a soft sound, almost like a purr. The cub was already beginning to breathe easier as the serum started its work. Varmoth's eyes had not left Dae-hyun. Something ancient and predatory moved behind that gaze. Recognition? Or perhaps fear? Impossible, the warrior whispered. Dae-hyun managed another smile, though this one was more grimace. You'd be surprised what's possible when you have no other choice. The medical bay remained silent except for the steady beep of monitors and the quiet sound of two very different creatures learning that pain, at least, was universal.